What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and show where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the latest episode of WWE Table for Three called Angle Academy, featuring Kurt Angle and Alpha Academy's Chad Gable and Otis. It has been, a good 2 or 3 years since we last had an episode of Table for Three. They're all on Peacock now, obviously. But the last one I have in my notes, and I don't write down the dates from which they aired. This one went up like a week or two ago, earlier this week. This one's obviously new. The last one they did before this was from the previous quote-unquote season, called Dinner of Domination with D'Lo Brown, The Godfather, and Mark Henry. And obviously that was before COVID, because what they would do, and I assume this was filmed over WrestleMania weekend, what they typically do is film these over like Mania weekend, SummerSlam weekend, when they have all the legends in town, all the superstars in town, and they film it at like a restaurant, like a local restaurant when there's no one there. Obviously, if you've seen any episode of Table for Three, you would know that. This is a bit of a different format. They kind of get right into it. There's no formal introduction for this episode. It just kind of catches a mid-conversation. But yeah, with COVID, since there has been no, there's been pay-per-view since last year, but I guess they didn't really bother to film any new Table for Three content, new network content, over Rumble weekend or SummerSlam weekend last year and stuff like that. And that was back when the people they were having attend these shows were still very limited. So I assume this was filmed over WrestleMania weekend. They had to air now, and there has been more Peacock/network content recently. And the only real network content we've gotten from WWE lately is the Evil series, which was more of a Peacock thing than a WWE thing, although it is a WWE show. I'm slowly but surely making my way through that. The next episode is about Sasha Banks that I haven't watched yet, episode 3, so that review should be up at some point in the next few days. That and the Broken Skull Sessions. Beyond that, we really haven't had a lot of new 24s, Untolds, Chronicles. All that stuff was coming out monthly, and we really haven't had any of that in well over a year, really since they went over to Peacock. New day ofs, and those are always great, and no new Table for Threes in like almost 2 years. So it was cool to see the series be brought back, and not only be brought back, but be brought back with these 3 individuals specifically, considering the link that they have with the whole Olympics thing, and Chad Gable and Kurt Angle are also very entertaining in their own right, so I thought that was very cool that the first episode of the new season, so to speak, for Table for Three was these 3 individuals. And hopefully they could do more episodes, and they film more episodes over Mania weekend, and this wasn't just a one-off. But they start off the episode with Kurt Angle and Otis talking about how they got into the Olympics, how they started watching the Olympics, and why they wanted to pursue an amateur wrestling career. Otis talked about how he always wrestled bigger guys, guys bigger than him, early on in his amateur wrestling career. And how WWE and WCW really influenced amateur wrestling, Gable said, leading to his team getting entrance music. He was really at the forefront of that, introducing entrance music to his amateur wrestling team, which is really funny. Amateur wrestling really opened a lot of doors, Gable said, for him as far as getting into professional wrestling. And Daniel Bryan, he specifically cites as someone that opened the doors for smaller guys in WWE. So it was cool to see them mention Daniel Bryan and not edit that out because now he's in AEW. He went to WWE right after the Olympics. And for Otis's coach was more a fan of the golden era of wrestling, so he really wasn't watching like the Attitude Era type stuff with Kurt Angle and whatever, but more like Killer Kowalski and people like that. More like the 70s and 80s, so he really wasn't down with like the entrance music type stuff. Gable and Otis said that they met initially in Colorado Springs while training for the Olympics like well over 10 years ago, and they bonded over pro wrestling. They used to watch it after practice, and that was like their, daily, weekly routine where they would go to practice, go back to their man cave, turn the lights off, and watch pro wrestling. Gable said that, or rather Gable making it to WWE, doing well, finding success with American Alpha, kind of told Otis that maybe he could do this as well. Maybe it's something that he could find success in as well. He almost took over his father's cleaning business. I guess his father owns a cleaning business. He probably could have done that, made a good living, made good money, whatever. But, he wanted to do something more with his life, and he never actually believed that he could make it. Gable felt the same way until they actually applied themselves and took the route to get to WWE. Otis talks about training for the Olympics, what that was like, what it consisted of. He actually moved down the road from Gable. Gable half-jokingly told him when Otis was looking to move, I guess Gable half-jokingly said, yeah, there's a house for sale down the road for me. Otis calls him back a week later, and says, yeah, I bought that house. So they're actually neighbors, and they train together in Gable's gym every day, even now, which is cool. Gable talked about how Angle really inspired him, and he actually met him initially at the Mall of America when, I don't know how old he was, probably a kid, teenager, whatever. Not only did he get his autograph that day, but he told Angle that he wanted to be in WWE and be in the Olympics, and he actually managed to do both. He doesn't remember it, obviously, but Kurt's probably thinking, yeah, well, he even said here, like, I probably didn't believe you, and he just proved him wrong, which is cool. They also recall the fact that Chad Gable had one of Angle's final matches back in 2019. So Kurt had his final match at WrestleMania 35, losing to Baron Corbin infamously. But he had that string of matches on TV leading up to that show with people like Jinder for some reason. But he did have a couple of other matches with Gable being one of them, Joe, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe that is, and Apollo Crews I think was another one. But yeah, he had a whole string of TV matches leading up to WrestleMania 35, and Gable was one of those opponents. The match was all of 5 minutes, but it was a good match. It was a great chance for Gable to shine and defeat. And I always hoped they would do more with those two after Angle retired, and they just I don't think they've interacted on TV once since then, which is a real shame. But anyway, Angle talks about his own upbringing in wrestling and was told, in amateur wrestling, he couldn't show any emotion. And being in pro wrestling was the exact opposite. He had to show emotion while training. It was a hard transition for him because he kind of had to tone down his intensity and stuff like that. But he was told to forget everything he ever learned prior to arriving in WWE, and he eventually found his footing. I mean, fairly quickly. He won't admit it himself, but Kurt Angle really was like was a duck taking to water as far as finding his footing in wrestling, really finding what worked for him and becoming a great pro wrestler almost immediately. That transition, he called it hard, but on television, it wasn't long before he was a superstar. But he felt comfortable with the character that Vince came up with for him, with like the milk-drinking douchebag after he got booed in his debut, and they really ran with that as a heel, which was great. He recalls some of his favorite WWE memories that he was a part of, from the milk truck to all the other stuff that he's done over the course of his career. And he mentions how nothing comes close, nothing can compare to the love he has for this business. For Gable, he talks about how the physical part of the PC and joining WWE, I think in 2012, 2013, was easy for him, but not the promos. The character stuff, which is shocking to say now because the guy's such a great entertainer on television, but those promos early on in his career, and we were shown some footage of promos that he cut, two different promos, from 2013, and it says Florida Championship Wrestling. I assume it was NXT, because I think FCW went away in 2012, so I don't think there was an FCW that Gable was a part of in 2013. I might be wrong, but that might have been that might have been an error on their part in saying FCW when it was actually NXT. But anyway, those promos got him comfortable very quick, and he found something true to him and really elevated it, and that was how they kind of stumbled upon the Chad Gable that we saw on NXT TV by 2015, and the guy was great. And all of the stuff that we're seeing now, like the Shoosh, for example, stemmed from car rides with Otis, and that's part of the Alpha Academy act that we're seeing right now on Raw, which is awesome. As far as what the future holds for them, as Angle asks them, Gable says he's really excited for the Next in Line program, the NIL program that WWE has now instituted, and finding athletes from various sports and various walks of life and bringing them into WWE, and specifically praising Gable Steveson as being the first one as part of that program. Now, like I said, I think this was filmed over Mania weekend, so they didn't talk about their interaction at Mania when Steveson threw Gable around a little bit. I think on night 1 or night 2. I think it was night 2 of WrestleMania. And they praised Chad Gable praises Gable Steveson as someone that is going to be one to watch in the future and a future potential star in the business. And time will tell. But this was very entertaining. It's only around 18 to 20 minutes. It's one of the shorter episodes. It's been so long since I've seen a Table for 3. I feel like they're usually closer to 25, 30. But this was fine. This was exactly how long it should have been. It was a very fun conversation, and it was more so focused on Otis and Gable's upbringing in wrestling and not as much on Angle, but that's fine. We've heard Angle's story a million times. But like I said, this was very entertaining, and it only makes me that much more want to see Kurt Angle interact with Alpha Academy on TV. Now, I know there was a report a few months ago that Angle was rumored to be on Raw, coming out of the Rumble, leading into the Rumble, whatever. Not for the Rumble, but interacting with Alpha Academy during their feud with RK Bro. And he was probably going to monitor those segments on TV from the spelling bee to the decathlon or whatever it was, So I wish that came to fruition. That would have been comedy gold. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. But at least we did get this episode of Table for Three here that, like I said, was very entertaining and well worth a watch right now on Peacock. Table for Three, Angle Academy. Thank you guys for checking out my reviews of all the stuff I break down here on the channel. I appreciate it. There's still plenty more I have to watch, including WWE Evil reviews. I've only reviewed 2 so far of 8, so we got a lot more episodes to go. The next episode on that deals with Sasha Banks that I haven't seen yet, so that review should be up at some point, like I said, in the next few days, hopefully. I still have yet to watch the Broken Skull sessions on Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray, whatever. That'll be up at some point. And there was a 24 like a fucking month ago on the 2022 Royal Rumble. Completely random, but I'll definitely check it out. And my review of that should also be up at some point in the not too distant future. So if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. Have a great rest of your week/weekend, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.